Hello. We're back for 8 Bits and Pieces on the Good Anime Palette podcast.
Yeah, some Inside Baseball. Will and I recorded 5 hours of intense and very enjoyable discussion, but intense nonetheless.
Yeah, I think Jason's still reeling from the fact that when I said that
Dude, were you looking at my expression that whole time?
The course of explaining War of Underworld from Sword Art Online to Jason over like an hour and 30 minutes...
The spectrum of emotions,
yes.
My man.
Yeah, you were writhing in pain at some point. You're like, how the fuck could they do what? Why would they? That doesn't make sense. I don't know if I'm pissed or if I'm surprised.
Yeah, and Will, here's the best part. It's like, knowing my personality, I'm trying to logic my way out of it, but obviously you can't at a certain point, right?
Well, I mean, like, try and make logic out of what happens in Sword Art Online, just like make logic out of what happens in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be able to surmise that, like, some things actually make sense.
And you literally don't know what's going to happen next unless if we spoil ourselves on purpose, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to talk about, since we have the mic on at the moment, is reasons and excuses. So, Will, anime, manga.
Right.
Those are the two of, the genre of...
Our main consumption of this
right.
particular medium. Yeah.
No
like
light novel, no visual novel, no novel.
No games.
No games. I mean, we do play video games,
but it's not a core component of like us consuming this particular medium, right? Like if we're talking like Japanese properties, more often than not, it'll be manga and anime.
Right. Sometimes in movie form and mainly in TV form, right?
Yeah.
So, reasons and excuses is the topic of why, whether it is a good reason, a big reason, or an inconsequential reason of why people are averse from consuming one type of medium over the other.
Oh man, we're doing the whole anime versus manga debate again?
No. We're doing anime versus manga versus light novel versus visual novel versus video games.
Right. Oh, okay.
And the myriad of reasons.
I wanted something light to talk about, man. This is going to be tough, but okay, let's go with it.
Well, it's either that or we talk about Crunchyroll disabling comments.
Oh, fuck. No, I don't want to talk about Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
Okay, fair. All right.
Okay, yeah. So, Will, why are we so adverse, as in you and I, are so adverse to anything other than anime and manga?
Well, I can't really say for myself because I do consume other things outside of anime and manga.
Oh no, yeah, I'm.
But I mean, like,
I meant like within the bounds of this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Do you mean like like why there's certain anime or manga that I don't read and don't watch, or why do I choose to only read the manga for this but not watch the anime and vice versa?
Well, basically, I guess you could say my objective is to figure out reasons why someone might not want to consume a light novel. Why some don't want to do a visual novel, even if it's painfully obvious. For example, visual novels fucking take forever.
Okay, well let's break it down like one by one, right? And let's start up with like the most bare bones, the most like direct, which is novels. Like reading. I mean, reading in itself is not a tough task. Literally anybody that's literate can do it. I think it's just the fact that my exposure to this realm of Japanese media, right? Whether it is in visual form, whether it's in written form or video game or whatever, it's always been rather visual for me. Right? When it comes to manga, it was, Hunter x Hunter, it was Full Metal Alchemist, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, and then with anime, it was like, really enough, it was like Ichigo 100%. It was, of course, Bible Black and all that. But like, jokes aside and all that, there was always a visual element to me wanting to consume this particular type of media. And so when it comes to like talking about like novels and in some aspects light novels as well, I guess I just needed like more of like a visual stimulus, which is kind of weird because like when I was younger, I definitely liked reading books. I loved reading all the Harry Potter books. I definitely loved reading The Shining. I've read a bunch of Stephen King books. So it's not so much that like I am averse to reading literature. I think it's just me associating myself with this particular form of media. My preferred medium would be having some sort of visual aid where I can like where I don't have to visualize the characters myself. I guess it just depends on what the source material is.
Yeah, and I think a good example that you may not have seen Hyoka, but you can relate to it at least, right? Yeah. It's based on an actual novel series, right? So the comparison of using that as an example, even though you haven't seen Hyoka, you can see it in terms of which one you honestly prefer. It's plain as day.
It's the same way with Tommy Galaxy, right? Like I watched the anime first, and then now that you've very nicely gifted me the books to Tommy Galaxy and Stubby Time Machine Blues and all that. No, Night of Short Walk on Girl.
Yeah,
like, I don't have an excuse to not read those, but it would not also be the first thing that I would choose in terms of consuming that particular series.
When you have these many different sources, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, if you were to tell me that there is a written form of Fullmetal Alchemist, like a novel, a novelization of it,
right,
probably wouldn't read it.
Right.
I want to watch the action go down.
And I think that sentiment, again, even though any reasons that we give, excuses or otherwise, good or bad reasons, significant or insignificant, I kind of want to tackle, just as a discussion, why someone may not be that prone to a light novel over a manga, for example.
I think
because light novel has illustrations.
It does have illustrations, but not nearly as much. It's still very text heavy. Now, of course, we're not comparing it to like even Monogatari, right? Monogatari, light novel, right? And when you watch the anime, it still stylizes itself with heavy quotes, with heavy speeches and monologues and whatnot, right? So it's very much a light novel in visual form.
And light novel sorry to interrupt, but light novel by definition is light, as in it's less...
Have you ever seen a light novel?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're insanely small. They're like one copy can fit in the palm of my hand, and it's like 100, 120 pages.
Yeah.
Right? Even
and
manga.
It's easy reading.
Even mangas are like 180 to 200 pages long.
Yeah. And it's meant to be easy reading, light on the eyes versus novelization, right?
And then you also have like digital novels where like people like
EPUBs,
web novels. Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's not enough, even though there's illustration in light novels for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, even then, it's like the illustration itself is not like necessarily a one-to-one companion for what's actually happening within the text. Whereas like with manga, it's like you'll have text, but you'll also have like a series of action from panel to panel depicting like how the story unfolds or how the action breaks down, right? So I think there's two factors, two main factors for me, in terms of why I don't read light novels. One, the anime or the manga probably already exists for it as an adaptation, and those are easier for me to consume. Two, light novels aren't nearly as, I mean, until recently, right? They're not as readily available for you to consume, right? Anime, it's on almost every single streaming platform, some more than others, right? Crunchyroll, Netflix, High Dive, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, probably some
Hulu.
Maybe even on Peacock, who knows, right? Like HBO might have some. Manga, we talked about the proliferation of digital manga platforms, right?
Bookwalker also, Humble Bundle,
K-manga, like, so you can either just use a subscription service, you can use Humble Bundle to buy like a bunch of cheap manga series together, or you use like Bookwalker to keep up to date with what the popular stuff is, wait for discounts, and as you buy, you get credits to be able to purchase even more, right? With light novels, you can still use like J-Novel or Bookwalker to be able to buy those, but they're not as like easy for you to just have an app ready for you to read.
Right.
And I think it's also just the fact that like books still take a lot of time for you to at least properly know you want to commit to it. When you see a manga, you should know already by like the first couple of chapters, yeah, I'm totally in it, because you have that visual stimulus. You have how the characters are already going to be acting out, how they're going to be presented, and how the story should really unfold. Whereas with light novels, I feel that it takes time to world build and character build. And sometimes, like for me, like I kind of prefer having the instant gratification. I want to be able to consume that and already have everything packaged for me. I'm not saying that I'm lazy. It's just more that like it
could be
if you already have everything ready for me.
I don't think
to
that's
see,
a bad reason, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, you already have everything ready for me to consume through anime or manga. I'll do that. I'm not saying I don't want to read. It's just easier.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's also the factor of cost too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, you can say like manga is definitely not cheap either, but with all the subscription services you have now, it's definitely a lot cheaper than it was before.
And I also want to emphasize that among all of these, right, it's not necessarily which is the right or wrong choice, but also on top of all of this, there's so much of anime, so much of manga, so much of light novels that you can't get everything all at once. You know.
Well, the thing is, right? Like, especially with anime, and now more so with manga. When an anime comes out, it's almost immediately internationally available.
Yep. Simulcast, simulpub. Yep.
You have it in a multitude of dubs. You have it in a multitude of streaming platforms, a multitude of different TV stations. Manga, a lot of them are getting simulpub now as well. And it's also become a lot easier to be able to use those subscription services. Light novels, on the other hand, when they first come out, are 99% only going to be in Japanese, right? Like, we talked to so many like series that have come out as seasonals where the original source is a light novel, which doesn't have an English publication.
Yeah. Or we just read the manga instead, or we just watch the anime instead, right? To me, and again, I'm only speaking for myself here, this might be a bit harsh, but I would put novelization above light novels in terms of priority for me. Because the problem with light novels is actually what makes it unique. Because some people will see that like what light novel is, which is small in size, small in volume, small in difficulty and ease of reading. I see that actually as I see the opposite of that. I see actually it's its weakest point. Like, its distinctive features is actually a downside, because if there's illustrations, it breaks the illusion of how I imagine the words translate into my imagination.
But then like, when it comes to manga, though,
right? But that's different.
Right?
I right now I'm saying like between novel and light novel, right?
Yeah. Like, if I was for example, if I was reading, like, I never watched The Shining,
right?
And I refuse to, because I've already created a world in my own mind of how The Shining would be. I don't have Jack Nicholson as, here's Johnny. I have someone else in my mind of how they're going to play that character. And that's why, like, I like reading The Shining. If, like you said, there were illustrations that were to accompany it, that breaks that immersion for me.
Yeah. And for me personally, it's not an anime, but you'll understand when I say it. Battle Royale is based on an actual Japanese novel. I watched the movie first, really loved it, one of my top 10 movies of all time, then read the English official translated novel, obviously with no illustrations, and it's dense. The fucking thing is like hundreds of pages. It's like a tome, bro.
Yeah.
I think I still have it somewhere, and they give you so much more context when it's an actual novel.
Yeah.
Because a light novel is meant to be portable, not only in terms of accessibility, but content, brevity, and everything. And you have the illustrations. A lot of people might like that, but for me, that's the exact reason why I dislike it. But novels are dense, and I like looking at pictures, and if it's moving pictures, it's even better.
But I think with like the light novel part too, it's also like, because then you have a visual appeal to be able to sell to people. And that's probably like what attracts people in the first place, being able to see like certain characters and then like using that character as a blueprint to see how the rest of the story would transpire. That's probably a way for them to enjoy it. I don't care for it that much.
What about visual novels?
Before I wasn't even going to go into that. I was sort of thinking about the whole like novel to like adaptation process. I mean, of course, you know about Blade Runner, right? and you know how the book is based off, how it's loosely based off
of Neuromancer.
No, it's based off. It's based off of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Blade Runner.
The origami. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there's like two
The short story.
I think
Wasn't it a short story? Like, oh no, I might be totally off the mark.
no. It's
Okay, never
yeah.
mind.
So
Sorry.
when people, so basically, the book itself was called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep,"
By the way, dope ass title.
right?
Very long, but dope ass title.
But then when the anime,
The anime.
when the movie came out, re-releases of the book then amended the story, the title, and now the title of the book is called Blade Runner. Do Androids Dream
right?
of Electric Sheep?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And so there's like two schools of thought in which like people praise the fuck out of the movie because it's groundbreaking.
It is groundbreaking.
But then like that also then overshadows the original source.
Because it had to alter itself
Yes.
in order to accommodate.
Therefore, there was also the sequel of Blade Runner 2049 or 2047.
2047.
Yeah, and that one was basically then like more in line with the core concepts and the core plot lines of like and the themes of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. But you're always going to find people that like praise the fuck out of the book because the book set the tone, but they also love Decker's portrayal by Harrison Ford, and
But also part of it's because it's a source, so it's the master choice, so to speak.
Yeah, but then we can also have that whole debate of like like why watch the anime when you can read the source is the best thing.
Exactly.
Right? But that's
Right.
That's gonna be later, I think, in this discussion. Right.
Right.
So you mentioned about visual novels, and I did want to get to that next because I was saying that like the whole lack of visual stimulus is also why I don't always read books. Well, visual novels are 100% visual as fuck, but it's also 100% filled with words.
Yes.
And I mean, how many visual novels have you played?
Ace Attorney counts, right?
In the context of it having an anime adaptation, though,
It does. Ace Attorney does have an anime adaptation.
But in the same way where it's like Higurashi or
Oh yeah,
Fate Stay Night,
I mean, yeah.
you know?
I never played Fate Stay Night. And all the visual novels that I've played, like the 999, Virtue's Last Reward, those don't have an anime. So it's kind of tough because
The one I did play, but I only played like one chapter of it, was Higurashi because it was free on Steam.
oh, okay.
Chapter 1 is. I don't know about the other chapters.
I mean, I'm still waiting for Doki Doki Literature Club anime adaptation. I don't even know how that's gonna work, but yeah,
it'll probably suck.
no, it actually would be almost impossible.
Yeah.
Actually,
Because it's way too meta to turn
Yeah.
into an anime and make it personal for people, right?
I think if it actually becomes legitimately good, it's scary because
Yeah.
people will legit go insane or like it will be bad. Let's just say, yeah.
Yeah, too much creepy for me. But yeah, like with visual novels, it's a tough spot because Clannad visual novel, right? Steins Gate visual novel, Fate Stay Night visual novel, and I love all of the anime adaptations. So
Yeah.
there really shouldn't be any reason why I wouldn't enjoy playing the visual novel. I think it's just the fact that, well, Fate Stay Night originally never had an English adaptation.
It was fans, translations, and everything that
Right.
really, yeah.
A lot of visual novels, much like light novels, only released in English. It's only recently that, like, with Steam and everything, that it's become a lot
It's like a remaster. Yeah.
remastered, and then
Like the Tsukihime thing
Yeah.
came out on PS4. Like, imagine that with a UFO table intro. Like, that's so crazy to me.
I don't think people realize. I mean, maybe they do, but I don't think people realize how many games come out of Japan that are only in Japan and never will ever have an English adaptation.
And also, how many also just stay within Asia?
Yep. That's why I had a friend, this was like a long time ago. It was like maybe 10, 15, when people were still playing on their Nintendo DS. And he was playing this game, and it's like, oh, I really love this Japanese RPG, and I've never heard of it. I don't even remember the name of it. It looked awesome, but it's only in Japanese, never released outside of Japan.
What was it?
I don't remember.
Oh,
this was
shit.
15 years ago, but it looked really cool. But then like he's like, yeah, I don't play like the Shin Megami Tenseis, or I don't play like the Persona 5s. I don't play like Final Fantasies and all that because it's like it's easy for me to get access to. I wanted because he was working for Namco at the time. No, wait, who? No,
Is
no,
it like
sorry, no, Namco. No, he was working for Capcom because he was working specifically within the Street Fighter division.
Is it Dissidia? Is it
No.
Is it
No,
Tactics Ogre?
No, I played Tactics Ogre, but that came out in the Nintendo, man. That came out like
I'm just spitting out like
Tactics Ogre was dope.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to like.
It was I mean, the fact that you're even saying the names and I know them, it's definitely not those.
Oh shit. Okay,
Yeah.
then never mind. Then
Those
we'll never find out.
Those are a bit too well known, but like, that's the thing too. It's like I think with like visual novels, the only reason why we're aware of certain visual novels is because we know of or we've already watched the anime for it. Right? Like I didn't know that Face the Night was originally a visual novel. Right? I didn't know that Steins Gate was originally a visual novel when I was watching the anime, but then once I was done with it and I found out, like, oh, cool. I guess then, do I need to play the visual novel if I already know how it plays out?
Probably not, actually, unless if you want to do like the different branching lines,
that's it,
I
right?
guess, like
that's
an Otome game. Actually, Otome games,
I mean,
essentially.
that's why, like, there were loads of people when the first Fate Stay Night came out by Studio D, and they were massively pissed, not only because of how badly it was animated and also because when people get killed they die. Yeah so like I think it's also just the fact that like you're missing out a lot on the story by not exploring those other storylines, much like Clannad has that issue too, but Clannad is still super highly rated, and then ever since the debacle that was 2006 Fate Stay Night, every other iteration, it's the biggest property. Like now, like you take away fucking Demon Slayer and anything else. I mean, One Piece, right? So the fact that we're even aware of these visual novels in the first place is because we have already consumed it from one form or another.
Oh, sorry, I have Danganronpa.
Okay,
I have played Danganronpa 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
I've not watched all of them though.
Yeah, but I mean, like, how many anime series were there?
I think 3,
maybe.
I actually don't know, but I'm guessing 3.
Yeah, but I mean, like when I ask you about Fate Stay Night, do you think the visual novel first or the anime series first?
Can I say both? Because I would be very aware of its roots, but of course, if you're asking me which one would I consume,
well, I mean, like right off the bat, first impression, you say Fate Stay Night, like I would think anime.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'll literally think of even Studio Dean
because
on top of the...
like, the visual novel itself, there's been nothing new since Fate Hollow Ataraxia. The only reason why they made it was because they wanted to fuck Ryder.
I didn't even know that was the last one.
I mean...
the latest one, so to speak.
Of course, they have, like, the Fate Go and everything.
Yeah,
right?
that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
But it's like, there's been not nearly as much in terms of, like, building the visual novel world because of how big the anime is, which is then made how big the gacha games are, which then made all the other merch really, really, really hot. And then like when the new movies come out, I mean, dude, like I'm sure they made a fuck ton of money just doing like not Hollow, and what's the I keep forgetting what the third part of Fate Stay Night is.
Heaven's Feel,
yes, right? All 3 movies of it. Same way with, Steins Gate. I mean, look what happened to Steins Gate. The animes come out really fucking good. 10 years later, the fucking studio that made Steins Gate goes bankrupt. And they had to sell their assets.
Yeah. I remember there was a game that came out on the Xbox 360, bro. I forgot what it was, but there was, like, randomly out of nowhere, I remember reading, like, the fuck is this? And then I was like, oh, I didn't know Steins Gate was a visual novel, and I guess, okay, it came out on the 360, or that era, essentially. I didn't know that, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when you say Fate Stay Night, I also was like, even with Steins Gate, I was like, it was based on a visual novel? I'm not surprised, but okay, I guess.
Same with Clannad, right? Clannad, with the game, you could also explore all the different romance or storylines, but enough people were really happy with After Story that it didn't really matter, because then they released little snippets, like real little like one
like
episode
OVAs,
specials, to show what would happen if the main character had gone with this female character or that female character.
Like, I have not read almost any light novels. Obviously, I've read some novels, maybe not of Japanese origin, right? But other than like Battle Royale, for example. But I have had an okay amount of visual novel experience under my belt, and I think the main reason why I would never or choose not to go down the visual novel route is accessibility.
Yep. That's the major one.
It's the biggest one. You need like usually a computer or the console to play it. It's kind of hard for it to be portable. It could be on your 3DS. That's where I played, 999, 9 doors, 9 lives, 9 rooms, whatever. And it was great. But
you could also play on your Steam Deck now, but then that's still
or on your phone.
That's a pretty heavy investment, right?
Yeah. So, and the other investment is time.
Yeah.
Because each of these, even if you count Danganronpa, are like tens. It's like video game, like 50 hours of time used. It's not like wasted, but it's used.
I mean, you also did use 2.5 years to watch JoJo, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you can.
But I was doing a lot of stuff in between those stuff.
You can use that as like a counterpoint as to like, well, you've had time to watch anime. You could definitely have enough time to play the visual novel. But it's like it's a completely different experience.
It is,
right? Because one is you're just sitting there and consuming. The other part is you actually have to play an active part in driving the plot. Right? And sometimes when you're being told a good story, you don't want to be the arbiter of choice. You don't want to be the one that has to move the needle.
And part of what appeals to a lot of visual novel players that I actually don't like is there are bad endings and then the game ends and then you have to like retrace your step back and then go through the right ending. Or like there's only one true ending, which is usually the case. And then everything else is a fail state. And it's just like, bro.
Yeah, but then there's also that counterpoint of not
choose your own adventure.
Well, no, but like not all anime have good endings, right?
That's also extremely true.
And that's what you're consigned to. Whereas like with the visual novel side, you could have that replayability, but then
that control.
But then it's like, when you wouldn't think about it, it's like, does that mean that the first time you got the bad ending is that time sunk? Like you got to think about that sunk cost too.
The literal only visual novel that I would say is so unique that it can't be replaced is Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah.
Literally everything else, and again, I'm not trying to undermine the effort or even the medium of visual novels, but you can easily get quite a lot out by watching the anime of Higurashi.
Yeah, I think that's the other major issue is that if there is a visual novel, there already exists an anime for it or a manga for it, especially in the Western world, right? We're talking from our perspective where Jason and I can barely understand Japanese. Like, we can, say a couple of words and phrases. We can understand certain catchphrases from like certain characters, but like I can't hold a conversation, let alone read a fucking book in Japanese, right? So
I mean, I can read katakana and hiragana. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but
exactly. So you can read those words and they'd be like, watashi wa will desu.
Oh,
hi. Yeah, okay.
Boku no chichi.
Yeah, that's it.
Chisai desu ne.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to like having visual novels, I mean, a lot of times, I don't know how it is now, but a lot of times back in the day, it took a lot of time and effort and money to be able to translate and ship your visual novels. And Japanese producers didn't want to do that. It's definitely changed now. But by the time that thing is ready to be shipped and for me to be buying it and playing it, I've probably already watched the anime.
And the other thing I think about visual novels nowadays, right, is that to me, visual novels is like this weird in-between state of an anime because there's like music, there's graphics, it's kind of dynamic in a way, but it's also very text-based.
I think the only way that I would have been able to get into visual novels is if it only existed as a visual novel first. And I had no prior knowledge of it as an anime, as a manga.
But you won't even venture down that route anyways.
And the reason why is because there's not as much syndication, there's not as much marketing, there's not as much actual advocacy within our sphere, within our way of consuming media to know what makes a good visual novel, right? Without that prior knowledge, like, not to say that we have to know everything, but it's like you gotta give me something,
right? It's not accessible too, right?
Like there are many Michelin star restaurants in Hong Kong, but like without trying it first, I don't know how good it is. But also knowing that like the point of entry is so high,
or where these restaurants are. I know they're Michelin star restaurants in Hong Kong. I don't know where all of them are.
Yeah. Much like with like visual novels, it's like I probably can figure out that if this is a good game, I'll enjoy it, but I need to know what the game is in the first place.
What about video games? Because, for example, I give a lot of leeway to Persona.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy. I would argue Shin Megami Tensei Persona, obviously is the lineage there, is a bit more like a visual novel, a bit more like a halfway point, a JRPG kind of thing.
Are you specifically talking about like anime video games or like games that end up becoming like adapted into anime?
That.
Yeah, because I was gonna
like
say
Tsukihime, for example.
Because I was gonna say that you're talking about like video games in general. It's like I just basically pick stuff that like I like. So if it's like a roguelike, if it's like a dungeon crawler or something,
I meant like Persona 5.
But if it's like, for example, like Dragon Quest, or if it's like any game that ends up becoming an anime, right? I probably would have. I mean, I don't know. I don't play many of those games. Right? Like, I mean, definitely didn't play
like Arc Knights and stuff like that, or like, you know, like where it's like it starts out as a game or gacha game. It's obviously still a game to an anime, or I think the more appropriate one would be the Persona series with the anime adaptations, but the Atlas.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's because like with Persona, right? You have to also factor in like its long history. It's been around. I mean, when the fuck did the first Shin Megami Tensei come out?
I don't know.
Like in the 90s, right? It probably ran on the first PlayStation. And that was like the mid 90s. So it had that staying power to the point where like once it then got adapted, you're talking like probably like 15, 20 years later.
Right.
Right? Like they adapted Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5, but anything before that they didn't do anything about it.
Do you think the interactability of video games lends itself in a negative way when consuming like, for example, because you have to, you know, play the JRPG of Persona 5.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the game is bad. In fact, if anything, I love all of the Persona games.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Even Persona 2 Innocence, right? And the point is, 3, 4, 5, for example, right? At least with 4 and 5, there's an anime adaptation. Actually, 3, there's the movies. I forgot, right? Yeah. The game does take a while. But to finish,
but at the same time, it's like
it's enjoyable, immensely great.
But at the same time, it's like when the games were out, did the anime also exist?
Yeah,
right. You have to think about when you started playing those games. I'm sure when you started playing Persona 3, that there probably wasn't an adaptation for it yet.
Correct. Right? It was on the PSP. I played it. Yeah,
and then a few years later, then it came out. But at the time, I
think for Persona 4, the anime, because also the funny thing is, in the middle of the games, there are cutscenes that are actually the anime.
There you go.
So,
yeah. And then from there, it's like, did you watch Persona 3, 4, and 5?
No. I mean, I finished all of the Persona 3 movies. I watched Persona 4 Golden. But not Persona 5.
Are those like games that are retellings of the same story, or are they like sequels? Are they like wholly original? Or
they're adaptations
of the game itself?
Correct.
Right. And what was your overall experience in terms of watching those movies and series after having played the game?
The Persona 3 group of movies were very dope. And was good because in terms of Persona 3, 4, and 5, I think 3 is the weakest, but also started the whole aesthetic and motif and trend. So I cannot... It's like JoJo Part 1 and 2. You cannot exclude it, even though it may not be the shining star. Yeah. Persona 4, I've beaten the game several times and played Golden at least twice. So I've almost spent 600 hours on Persona 4 and watched Persona 4 the Golden.
600 hours. Fuck, okay.
No joke.
Right.
I also spent almost 800 hours on Monster Hunter World. But the point I'm trying to make is...
Monster Hunter World, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I'm just a psycho when it comes to Persona 4. And I also play the fighting game.
What, Strikers? Oh, that's 5, right? Persona 5 Strikers is the fighting game.
No, that's the platformer. I'm talking about Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax.
Okay. Because I saw there was like a bunch of sales for Persona 5 Strikers. I was like, I might pick it up. And then I saw Strikers. I'm like, is that different from Persona 5?
Yeah, it's a platformer. Yeah. But Persona 4 the Golden is kind of interesting because the anime has like all these nuggets and Easter eggs that if you played the game, it's like really cool to see the anime adaptation. Like there's value in that. And if you never played the game, it's also a decent adaptation because you say you have the Persona 4 animation and then the Persona 4 the Golden animation. So it's like, what the fuck are you going to do? you're not going to watch both, and technically you don't need to watch both. But if you watch both or play the games, it's like there's a lot, way more than there needs to be of like nuggets of extra stuff.
Yeah.
That it's not a waste of your time or not just a complete like, oh, the retelling of the video game.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to the game side, it's rare that I ever play anything that ends up becoming an anime. Right? More often than not, it's the other way around, where like I watch Naruto, so eventually I will play a Naruto game. I've played a bunch of PS3 games for One Piece and for Bleach.
I play a lot of Dragon Ball games that are not very good games, but they retell the story and they're playing it, so I kind of love it.
Yeah. So it's like once you've read the story, you kind of want to play it out and see like how you would do if you Kamehameha your way through, or you entered Soul Society and all that.
I've literally done all that,
right?
Yeah.
But then like, on the inverse, it's like if you've already experienced everything interactively through a game, I feel like once you start reading the story, it's like I've had no input in this whatsoever. I'm just being retold the same story, but without me actually mashing buttons and moving things at my own pace.
Right.
So I think like, with games, I would have to have like at least like known that I'm interested in the game first before playing it, and then maybe later on they have the anime and then decide if I want to watch the anime.
So it will rarely be the inverse, right?
I mean, I don't even really play all that many games nowadays, like especially like story-driven games,
right? Because it takes time, right?
Yeah. And again, I know that the counter argument is, well, you guys put time into reading manga and watching anime. Completely understandable.
Yeah,
yes,
I get it.
We are hypocritical in that sense.
Yes.
But again, it's also because of the fact that a lot of this stuff is already heavily marketed. We've been consuming this medium for almost 20 years.
Also, video games are very expensive, bro.
Yeah, you can't. There's like, okay, fine. You can say there's like Steam sales, or there's like Xbox Pass and PlayStation Plus and all that. You can get free games, but it's also like, again, it's an added service that I don't necessarily need to subscribe to, whereas I already have Manga Plus. I already have Netflix and Crunchyroll. So
like I
don't need to spend more money to be able to watch the stuff unless they change their subscription models. That's basically it.
Yeah. So then we come to the final two. The anime versus manga debacle. And
I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but we probably haven't even scratched the surface on it.
And I don't think we will complete if there's even like a completion thing. I think, though, one thing that I will give manga... First of all, I will just say this. If there's a manga adaptation of a light novel, it's way easier for me to read the manga. I'll just say that flat out, even though that's nothing to do with anime yet, right? That's just easier for us.
Even if the light novel is way higher rated than the manga, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am. Not really that you can say whatever. That's just my preference.
Yeah. I know caviar tastes good, but if I haven't eaten it before and I like eating this other thing
or
instead,
like oysters,
I'll eat the other thing. I mean, I know that this light novel is probably going to be a banger, but I've also never read a light novel before, and I'm probably not going to change right now.
Yeah, like, okay, the manga adaptation of this, the next volume is going to come out in a year, whereas there's like 8 volumes of the light novel. I'm just going to wait or just call it quits at this point, that kind of thing.
Now, when it comes to anime versus manga, though, and we've done this before.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like, we've done this with Dorohedoro when we finished watching
the
first season.
The whole world have gone through this. A lot of weebs have gone through this debate and discussion with themselves or each other, right?
Yeah. The easiest, and this is probably why anime exists in the first place, is you watch the anime. It's fucking awesome. You only find out then that there's only going to be one cur. Well, then I guess that they've done their job. If you want to continue the story, you read the manga.
Mm-hmm.
You buy the manga, and you've done what the anime told you to do.
One of the pillars of the truth of the industry is what anime is to promote the source material.
Now, if both of them exist, and I've definitely fallen victim to it, I usually go for whichever source is rated higher.
Okay.
More often than not, I find that as well, because, and this is pretty much like true with any anime.
Yeah.
That when you watch an anime, it's never going to be 100% faithful. There's going to be certain things that are cut out, or certain things that are shortened or lengthened in order to meet standard
or the
production
pacing,
times.
right? And
exactly.
and in this moment we're talking about animes that are adapted from manga, not a light novel or in between, right? It's just anime, manga, and the in between there, right? Yeah. Okay.
So, it depends. It really depends. Like I've definitely read a ton of manga that the anime exists, but because I've read like Monster, I read Monster instead of watch it. Parasite, I read Parasite instead of watch it.
I watched Parasite, never read a single.
Yeah, you watched the Maxim, right? I've read the whole manga, and I think for you it's more an aesthetic choice. For me, it was because especially when it comes to horror, I prefer to read it. I feel that like reading it, especially also having like still images.
Don't forget Junji Ito, bro.
Yeah, they definitely instill more fear and suspense in me compared to watching it unfold, because a lot of times there's too many cues to be able to like tell you when you're supposed to be scared. Like the crescendo of a violin, or like the smashing of a vase, or when a shadow like moves across
or jump
the screen.
scare.
Yeah.
Versus you induce your own fright, right? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, when you're reading Junji Ito, like any of them, like whether you're reading Gyo or you're reading
Tomie,
like, or like you just read like
Tsukimaki, Spiral.
Yeah, Sumak. What is it? Sumak.
What?
What's the name?
Isn't it Tsukimaki?
No, it's not Tsukimaki. It's definitely not.
What? Why are we losing our? Are we actually losing our minds?
No, isn't like it begins with the T. I know that, but it's not Tsukimaki.
Why are we freaking out over this?
How
did we both fuck this up? Wait, isn't it? Wait, how come I can't find this? I'm not lying. Hold on. Uzumaki.
Yeah, Uzumaki. Not Tsukimaki.
Dude, we're fucking losing our minds.
Yeah,
okay.
Uzumaki.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're reading it and then like the girl's hair starts moving and shit, like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
But I mean, when people saw that play out in animation, they're like, no, this is not cool. This is not scary at all.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just certain mediums just work better.
Right.
If it's horror, like for example, like Blood on the Tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate to watch it in animation form.
I think it would be really difficult to pull it off in anime form.
Yeah.
Because it really hinges a lot on like the voice acting, the composition, the
silence.
The silence. Like asking an anime to be silent is a very ambitious and risky thing to do.
But it's also counterintuitive too. Like you're meant to have something going on, yet you're having still frames and just complete silence. Like that's not anime, dude, right?
But it is horror though.
It is horror.
There's a lot of horrors where it's like kind of like that.
Just is it good?
Like uncomfortable though. Yeah.
Right? Like you want to have that suspense. You want to have the air of uncomfortability. And that's what I get from reading mangas that are like horror based. I just don't. I mean, it was the same thing with like reading The Shining, right? Like there's that suspension of fear where you're just like, oh shit, like if I turn the page, I know something's gonna happen. Whereas if you're watching it play out, like it just does not hit the same.
Right.
Because
it's you turning the page rather than if you just sit still, the anime or the movie just plays out whether you like it or not.
There's also certain like shonen series where like action scenes, of course, played out in full animation are gonna look fantastic. But there's also certain scenes where like when it's drawn on a panel, especially
like One Punch Man or Dan to Dan,
like
right?
a double page.
Dan to Dan's double pages are fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Chainsaw Man too.
So that's why like there's absolutely no reason for you to feel like one is inferior to the other, because both of them, especially like Chainsaw Man, soon to be Dan to Dan as well, both mediums are amazing at what they do.
Now, let me tell you something that the GAP podcast has done for me that made me more of a manga consumer than before.
What, GAP? Like, is in like the GAP ASAP? Or is there something else?
It's like when an anime gets announced, it's for us to like, or I just like read stuff that be like, sometimes you can just tell like, oh, this is like anime adaptation material. Even if it's like slop or like the isekai, like I parry everything before I knew that there was an anime adaptation. Did I waste, quote unquote, spent a lot of time on these 7 out of 10s? You bet I did. there was a lot of these random isekais that I was just like, oh, just check out a volume because it's easy, or a couple of chapters because it's easy. It's flip.
But there's also manga that you read knowing full well that there's no adaptation coming out. Like you read like Real.
It's
right.
I'm so mad that such an anime doesn't exist yet.
I mean, did you ever watch Berserk, or have you always just been reading it and you've neglected anything animated?
Yes.
Yeah, right? There's just going to be certain things that you just know that if you want to consume it, the best way to consume it is the manga.
Yeah, and this is not because, for Berserk's case, of like the 2016 stuff. Obviously, like that shit didn't help.
Yeah.
But it was always like the manga for me.
Yeah.
Like Hunter x Hunter, I've not watched the 2011 remake or the OG. I've always just read it. And to me, it's like that's the way it goes.
Same with me with Tokyo Ghoul. I just knew, I mean, like, I knew that the anime was out, but then like I saw the manga on the shelf that, I was in that bookshop I was at, so I was like, fuck it, I'll buy it. Loved it. Bought the rest of them.
Tokyo Ghoul, Jack, and what was the other one?
There's another side story. I remember. Well, there's Tokyo Ghoul, Tokyo Ghoul Reed, Tokyo Ghoul
White?
Jack. It might be. I can check.
But are those like light novels?
No, they're one shots.
Oh, okay, then never mind. I was about to say like because there are some spin-offs that are in light novel form. So in those situations, it's like anime if they adapt it as like the Rohan Kishibe thing. Actually, wait, that's a manga too. Shit. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Oh no, so it's Tokyo Ghoul, and then there's a prequel spin-off manga, Tokyo Ghoul Jack. There was a illustration book that you Pinto. Oh yes, that is
because it's about the guy the ghoul, if I remember.
Oh wait, no, okay. Pinto was a OVA.
Ah,
yeah, it was an OVA, which is
from an original
from the novel Tokyo Ghoul Days.
I see.
Yeah, there was a novel series for Tokyo Ghoul.
Ah,
yeah, but this is like like different stories of like the daily lives of the ghouls and humans and whatnot.
Also, I just feel like manga is very as it no brainer to everyone. Easy to flip through. Easy to like quickly go through chapters.
Then also it is like the closest of the initial original intention of how a story is told, because it's literally created by the hands of the creator, right? And then when you have the anime adaptations afterwards, it goes through different storyboarding, different compositions.
Hundreds of people are involved.
Right? But it doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, like, I've definitely watched more anime than I've read manga. Right?
Me too.
I think it might be a bit more 50-50 with you, or I don't know.
I would still say it's more anime now, just still based off of the backlog.
Yeah.
But manga is a sizable portion of consumption nowadays as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to be honest as well. Like, more recently, like my manga consumption is mainly because of the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the same thing for anime, but like, there's definitely stuff that like I would just turn on Netflix and be like, oh, that's out, I'll watch that. You know, like, I mean, like from me to you, like I've been watching that, not even like caring about whether I'm going to talk about it on the podcast, because it's a good manga to watch with my wife.
And I've definitely read a lot of 7 out of 10s or even good mangas that I will never mention or don't need to mention, like a lot of girl love stuff.
Yeah,
because don't need to.
But there's, again, it's like, if the medium works best for it, then you're going to consume it that way, right? A lot of girl love stuff don't have adaptations.
Yep.
Right? And of course, a lot of girl love stuff work really well as a manga versus being in an anime. Just like how The Fable, right? How Under Ninja, how My Home Hero, how My Wife Has No Emotions work better as manga than in anime, as we have seen, because there are stats that prove it, and also because we watched the animes and we fucking hated them.
Yeah.
But the mangas were amazing.
Exactly. So there is no right or wrong answer. It's just more of like a discussion as to like, for at least even for us,
it's always situational.
Yeah.
I think like it just depends. If you have, like, if you live in a place where anime is easy to access because you have the right streaming services, but buying manga is difficult, then your choice has been made.
Now, let me ask you, Will, because I know you haven't, but considering the possibility, because this has been a recent trend, is audiobooks. audiobooks.
Yeah, you've mentioned this a couple episodes back, how there are now people like reading manga or reading light novels and doing it in audio form.
It's quite interesting because when I say about light novels, how it's in between hybrid and that it's, to me, its weakest link, I think audiobook, the audio part of it, I mean, we're a podcast, it's audio, but an audiobook is actually quite dope because not only is it being recited to me, the inflection, the tone, I mean, obviously it depends on the quality and the voice direction, but if done well, it's like, also it's easy like for me to like, as I go to sleep, have an audiobook on with a sleep timer, you know, or like I'll listen to this chapter a day or whatever, or on my jog or whatever, because, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's becoming an emerging medium, I think.
I mean, like, especially with like how many ads there used to be about Audible and how like so many new subscription services for audiobooks have shown up as well. I mean, Spotify hosts some audiobooks too, right? You can get audiobooks on Apple Books. You can get it on Amazon as well. So it's definitely becoming a little more commonplace, but that's not something that I would care for either.
Right.
And I think it's just down to, if I'm going to listen to something, I'll just listen to anime whilst watching it. And if I want to listen about a book, I'll probably just read the book myself. You know, in the because it's that immersion for me too.
I see.
It's me being able to read certain character lines in what I perceive to be that character's voice,
rather than having it predetermined for you.
Yeah,
with no
like
with you no bearing,
like,
right?
Fucking like the whole Monogatari series could be read by Morgan Freeman, but that would be so fucking weird, wouldn't it?
But what if it's Kanahana?
Then that would be different because, well, who's narrating for Hitagi?
Kanahana.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if I could, I would get all the OGs.
I mean, like, is it just going to be like Kanaha saying ara 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 ara?
I mean, that's pretty appealing to me, dude. That's pretty appealing, I have to say.
I mean, Sid Snap did that for 24 hours one time.
Holy shit!
Actually, no. I think I'll actually look up the video because
fucking go through the gauntlet she did, man.
I'll
Tried and true hero, bro.
I'll still stand for Sid Snap anytime. No, she did a video.
Wait, didn't she? Wasn't she like the titular character in an manga series called Dress Up Darling or something?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Giga definitely got the 2.5 dimensional seduction there,
and delusional there, right? Yeah, it's like no, I don't see the resemblance. Yeah,
no, not at all. No. He definitely backed himself with Dress Up Darling.
At the end of the day, I just wanted this to just be a really brief discussion, just on like the myriad of reasons why you might like or dislike a certain medium over the other, or a preference over one of the other, rather than saying one is superior over the other, even though for me there are ones that are like in different like hierarchies of sorts,
I think
right?
The other thing that we haven't talked about is the fact that the main crux of it is that we're spoilt for choice, right? Like, if the manga is out there, there's probably already or going to be an anime adaptation. And if there is an anime, there's probably a manga or a light novel or a video game or a visual novel it's based off of, right? And so then you have the choice of, do you watch the anime? Do you read the manga? Do you play the visual novel?
Or do you wait for that medium to show up? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in the end, it's also just the fact that there's so much anime and there's so many mangas that even if you wanted to read something, you probably already have like 5 to 10 things lined up before you even get there. And once you reach that quote unquote finish line, there's going to be 10 other things that come up. And then guess what? Fucking fall 2024 is around the corner.
Yeah.
So like, what are you going to do at that point? Like,
again, one of like, we're not beating a dead horse here, but one of the other pillars of truth is there is just too much to consume, such that it is impossible to do everything all at once.
I mean, dude, we had just got done with recording the seasonal review for summer 2024, and we only watched like 25% of the stuff that's out.
Mm-hmm.
And are we ever going to finish them? Probably not.
No, definitely not.
Not without trying. It's just the fact that there's just too much stuff.
Also, I don't really want to watch a lot of those. Some I'll give, because we need to do it for the podcast. Or if my curiosity is there, I will just watch one episode and then, and just call it quits at that point. But
but every year there's always going to be a new poll for
oversaturation.
Kono manga ga sugoi. Oh, yeah, the new top 100, or the new 100 anime, the 100 mangas that we definitely want to see adaptations for. Great. When that rolls through, we'll figure out if we want to read them. I definitely did that with Hikaru. The summer Hikaru died.
Yeah.
And it was fucking fantastic. But that was
spoiler alert. But yeah,
that's like a one-off. How often are we going to be looking at that list and being like, I definitely need to check that manga out? Sometimes we don't, because we're creatures of habit, right? If we like watching anime, we will watch anime. If we don't want to read a manga, we won't read a manga. It's not like we're going to all of a sudden change just because expectations of others dictate our own actions.
Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, that is the moral of the story. Don't let other people tell you which way to consume it. I think the most tragic thing is, if it's a good thing, it doesn't matter how you consume it, as long as you consume it.
No. The real tragedy is that there are people that have never read the manga for Tokyo Ghoul, yet still praise the fuck out of the anime. Like, that's the real tragedy there. If there is ever an instance I tell people to do one thing over the other, it's Tokyo Ghoul. Anything else is free game.
I love that, because it's like the one only, like,
this is the
cardinal rule.
Yeah, the one pillar within my realm of existence is that nobody should ever praise the anime of Tokyo Ghoul, which then reminds me, 10th anniversary. What the fuck's going on with Tokyo Ghoul?
Yeah, well, actually. Yeah, actually, you're fucking right.
We talked about this like several months ago, and it's already like.
Is it because is actually the 10th anniversary thing? It's all available on YouTube or something.
Well, by the time this comes out, it's August. We're like 2/3 of the way through 2024, and nothing has come up yet.
No, like legitimate. Like, I don't actually know if. Have we talked to Soishida? Has someone checked on
Ishida-san, what's going on, man?
A wellness check, bro?
I mean, I'm not rewatching all of those fucking episodes because I've never watched any of them. I've never watched a single episode of Tokyo Ghoul.
I haven't either. I actually haven't. And for me, it's not because I have that passion of disdain for the anime. It's just I read the manga first.
Yeah.
And it just kept going.
I knew full well an anime was out. I watched Giga's Tokyo Ghoul in 5 minutes. I still read the manga. Again, like creatures of habit. If I know something is better in a certain form, I will watch it that way.
Right.
But just because something is superior than the other doesn't mean I default go for the original superior source. If it's easier for me to watch the anime, fine. Much in the same way with like Erased. Right? Like if you were...
but that's different because they went different routes.
Yeah, but that's why there's people that say read the manga because that's the true ending. I don't give a fuck because the manga and the anime endings, in my opinion, are both good despite being different.
Right.
That's just how it is.
It is just how it is. And I guess that is how this discussion would be.
I think the main discussion point here is, what do you choose? I don't give a fuck, really. Like, if it's an anime, I'll watch it. If it's the manga, I'll read it. If it's a visual novel, I won't buy it. If it's a visual novel,
right? Yeah.
If it's a light novel, I'm sorry. It's only in Japanese. I'm not gonna read it. Oh, you told me it's translated? Well, too fucking bad. It's too expensive for me. Oh, there's a discount on Bookwalker? I don't care. I don't use Bookwalker. That's it. That's literally it.
Right.
Like, you're also then telling people as well, it's like, oh, there's so much anime to watch, but there are probably like people listening to this that don't have Crunchyroll or that don't have Netflix, and so therefore, like with Netflix,
or don't have High Dive, I think is the better comparison here. Yeah,
right. So then, like for example, like or don't have Disney Plus. So how the fuck do you watch Summertime Render or Heavenly Delusions?
That is for you, dear listeners, to figure out on your own. But hey, whatever it is,
Technolize, right? is available on Amazon Prime.
Don't remind me. Every time you remind me, my heart breaks a little bit inside,
right?
Bro. Like it really does. Because you're talking to me like prosthetics, cyberpunk, like the Serial Experiment Lane. I'm like, oh my god, it's so painful every time you mention it. Not because like I blame you for it, but because it's like the planet's tragedy of the licensing. It's like that same thing. It's just like
same with Baccano as well.
Yeah,
Baccano is a great story. So I've been told, but I can't watch it because it's not licensed anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to have to like resort to sailing the seas to watch it. That's not how I want to consume it.
Yeah.
So there's just some things that are just going to exist without me ever consuming it. Right? That's a choice that I can't make. There is a choice that I can make when it comes to, do I read Golden Kamuy or do I watch Golden Kamuy? I wanted to see the bear fucking scene, so I read the manga. I'm sorry, like I just wanted to know why they even bothered putting a bear fucking scene in it, and it was fucking hilarious.
Oh Jesus! I need to like finish season 2, 3, 4, 5.
You probably weren't expecting this, like, this particular BP to end with me talking about bear fucking in Golden Kamuy.
And at this point, I could say whatever to make it end on a better note, but I don't think there is a more appropriate note to end on.
I mean, we just hit the 1 hour mark, so perfect timing.
That is it. I'm not really going to go over show notes other than, as per usual, music credits. So our BPOP is Orange by SINY, and our outro is Weeping by Cushy. Epidemic Sound provides all of our royalty-free music. You can listen to all of the artists that we feature on your music listening platform of choice. And if you're interested in using Epidemic Sound, you can always use the referral link in our show description. Terms and conditions apply.
Good topic.
Really?
I mean, well, it's a topic that we've talked about a lot. But
we just needed some time to waste, so that I was just like,
it wasn't so much. Well, I mean, don't let everybody know we're just trying to waste time here. But at the same time, it's also like every time we do any of these discussions, whether it's sub versus dub, whether it's anime versus manga, whether it's what's your typical rate of consumption for something, what's your typical choice of consumption for something, like we can talk hours about it. And more often than not,
do you know what's the problem when we talk and discuss hours and hours about it and back and forth? We waste time not consuming it one way or the other, and that's the biggest tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, you just told me that Darwin Incident just released its latest volume. So
it's volume number 6, baby.
I definitely want to read that. So, yeah, I'm going to turn this off now so I can go read some manga.
Peace.